Approve a purchase order with Station Square Condominium Association, Inc. for increased building insurance premiums for the 2024 Condo Association owners' fees.
All right, what you're about to hear, two of these council members, they're basically gonna have to recuse themselves at the meeting, and that's what they're about to talk about. So let's listen why.
Mayor, Council, if I may, it is required that I disclose, we talked about this in our one-on-ones, that I do own a unit in this building. Jeremy will go over that this agreement has been in place since 2009. It predates my even employment here. And once this item did come to the city manager's office, ACM Slaughter did go through legal to see if there was an opportunity to make changes or end this agreement, of which at that time we were told there wasn't any option. So the item is now before you.
I guess it's my turn. I will also, under advisement of Attorney Margolis, will be recusing myself as I also own a unit there. I'm not quite sure how that works with the consent item. Must it be removed so I'd recuse myself?
If I may. So first of all, agree with the city manager. I think this is being handled procedurally in the correct manner. As far as the recusal, if there is consensus among the remaining 4 members to leave the item on consent, it can simply be on consent, but with a note that the Councilmember Teixeira has recused herself. Ultimately, when it comes time to vote on the item, it could either be separated out by taking it off consent, or in the alternative, it could simply be noted today that she's recused herself. I think either way will accomplish our purposes. So, yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Jeremy Allshouse, City's Parking Manager with the Public Works Division. The item before you is the city basically, for a long-standing deal since 2009, we're partnered with Station Square. We own the first 100 parking spaces in the bottom floor, in the bottom section of the garage, not the bottom floor, but the bottom section of the garage. And as part of that, we're then a property owner in that, so we have to pay condo fees just like everybody else that owns property in there. This deal predated, I think anybody, well, I wasn't here for sure. I think everybody on this council had nothing to do with anybody that's currently there. But basically, the budget that they worked out for this year, the city's part, is based upon there's a formula that they figure out, they've copied off of. We did have them go back and look at it and dig a little deeper because, as you know, prices just get more and more, everything gets more expensive, so their budget's it's climbing. That's going to be $90,000, $90,113.52.
Yes, you heard that right. They are paying a condo association $90,000, $90K to rent out the bottom floor for 100 parking spots. Make it make sense.
That's going to be $90,113.52 this year, but then also last year, towards the middle of the year, they had their insurance company notified them abruptly that they were canceling them, so they had to go out and seek new insurance for the building, all the common areas, which we helped pay for. That added an assessment to all of the residents, and our portion of that being $49,749.90. So all told, for this item, we need to pay them for our fees for this year, plus the assessment from last year, $139,863.42.
And $140,000 for a rental property. They could have already bought land, built on the land, made their own parking garage, because this has been going on since 2009. Well, we understand where their money's going.
Happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Menino.
I have a couple questions. When you stated that as a staff we looked into getting out of the contract, are we looking into getting out of the contract because the service of this building is not needed in staff's eyes, or are we looking to get out of it because of a possible conflict associated with living?
It is not because of the conflict. I'll let ACM Slaughter answer.
It's the mere financials. There is in one of the attachments was provided basically revenue and expense model, and we're losing money on it every year. And but unfortunately, because of the nature of its connection to the, it's not really a marketable product, I wouldn't think, so it's not going to be very easy to divest from it.
So how are we using those 100 spaces? I mean, they're just, it's a pay lot?
It's public parking, it's
Yeah.
paid parking, so
Okay.
anybody can use it, but the majority of the city employees that work in City Hall, that's where their parking is.
Okay.
We're putting it in there.
So when new City Hall is constructed, are we still going to need those 100 spaces?
We won't need them for city employees, obviously.
Yeah.
They'll move over closer
But
to
it would
where
stay for
the
the
city hall
public.
is. But it will still be public parking available to the public for events and such.
Vice Mayor?
So I parked in there last week once, and it's not really marked really well about public parking. And it would be, I would just say that we probably need to put a sign. Maybe we don't need it like this year, but when City Hall's done and it goes back to public parking, that we have it better designated as public parking.
We'll have to follow the tenets of the Station Square as far as posting signs and stuff like that. I don't know if that's a factor, but your point's well made. I know we do have it on the website. We advertise it. We're not trying to keep it a secret. I promise you we're not.
Councilmember Menino?
Just for clarification and direction, I guess, are we recommending as staff, because of the cost, that it's not a service that we need to extend on this contract? And if staff is using these parking spots, how many spaces are we using, and do we have alternatives?
I think, if I could, I think we're obligated, based upon the contract that we signed back in a certain, Attorney Margolis could expound on this, but we're obligated under this contract. We signed this deal saying we're a partner with
Gotcha.
you guys, we own this, and, we have to pay, these are the expenses that we have to pay as being in that agreement, and that agreement is pretty solid.
And when does said agreement expire?
No.
This is honestly wild. Clearwater set something up forever with a condo to just have 100 parking spots and to pay the condo the fees of nearly $100,000 a year. Oh my God.
I believe
It's complicated.
Before me,
typical
I told you,
deals.
Yeah,
before me.
it's not easy to get at.
It's a secret?
No, it's
No,
not a
it's-
secret. I believe it doesn't
But
expire.
we're definitely bound to pay what is met.
We are, and I do not want to distract from the issue, but I'll just say that this is a good example of contracts that, in most cases, I've involved or advised government not to get involved in, which are these types of joint ownership arrangements with the private sector. I have seen many times in my career, whether it's this contract with Station Square, whether it's Clearwater's former arrangement on North Beach. I have almost yet to see an example where it has worked out favorably for taxpayers. When you get into the details of these contracts, they're almost always unfavorable to taxpayers, and this one is just one of many examples I have seen. So this agreement was last visited in 2011. And in 2011, it was reaffirmed that the agreement would be in one-year increments, but it is set to automatically renew every single year. Ultimately, as Mr. Slaughter pointed out, let's say that the council wants to get us out of this. Well, what exactly are we going to do? We could, as a city, say that we're going to stiff them on the payment.
And that's the lawyer.
But ultimately, are we then going to allow the condo association to foreclose on the parking spaces? Because that would be the outcome of it. We could try and sell it, but as Mr. Slaughter pointed out, and with which I agree, there's very limited market for something like that. So trying to sell our interest in this is not something as easy. At least with the North Beach Garage, when it came time to get out of it, we had an exit strategy that was a lot more viable. We were able to put that out for a bid, and we were able to get a good bid price out of it. Whereas here, I don't think that would be as viable for us, both because of the location of the garage, the number of spaces, the relationship with the condo association. All those factors, I think, would make it very difficult as a practical matter for us to get out of it. But to Councilmember Menino's point, The option is really just to stiff the condo association on the payment, but it would be in violation of the contract. And my assumption is that the association would foreclose on our spaces. And so you would essentially, win the battle and lose the war, I'm afraid, because we might get out of paying the association dues, but ultimately they're going to foreclose on those spaces and probably have fines and everything that gets put on top of that. So my opinion is that we're pretty much stuck with it. And normally, I would not be giving legal advice in public, but the reason we're doing that right now is to make sure that everyone knows from an ethics perspective that I have looked at this independently of the city manager and of Councilmember Teixeira, and that the rest of the council is benefiting from my independent assessment of this. We're pretty much stuck with it.
Does stuck mean eternally?
Well, I think,
that's what it says.
I think for today's discussion, we need to stick to the agenda item. That's whether or not to pay what we owe, the 139. If there's a larger discussion on what we do going forward, that's certainly something we can discuss and put on for a future agenda.
I think it's
I
without
agree.
question, it's a larger discussion to have. I mean, if the answer is yes, eternally, then we're just kicking a can down the road, spending what's being described as almost a waste of money, and we're going to do that for how long, and then revisit it and say, oh, we can't do this forever, so why not revisit it sooner than later?
Well-
It just makes sense.
They got themselves into a $100,000 a year parking garage for 100 spots. Just let that sink in. Oh my God. Oh my God. And they can't get out of it.
I'll say something too. I completely agree with Councilmember Albritton, and signage is going to be paramount. I never knew we had 100 spaces to park there. Second generation code. Do you know we had 100 spaces before seeing this?
I didn't know 100, but I knew we had them. Your truck wouldn't fit anyway.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm parking out in the back lot. I'm not talking about me. But I'm just saying in general, like, I never even knew that existed till I'm reading it. So,
And I'm not saying we
marketing,
don't
yeah.
pursue this. I'm just saying
Yeah.
today,
Today,
we're
this,
really just considering
Learn
whether or not
something
to
every
pay
day.
this
Thank you.
bill.
Well, if anybody wants to sign a contract with me, I'm open to it, because eternally is amazing. That's, wow.
Well, for as long as we own it, I guess would be the thing.
Right, I mean, in fairness, I mean, one way to look at this is to remember that we are an owner just like other unit owners. I mean, just like Councilmember Teixeira, owns a unit there. I mean, we as a city, we have ownership interests. And so when you get involved in any condominium arrangement, whether it's in the commercial setting or in the residential setting, you are buying into that process, and now you have to contribute to that process. It's just the very nature of condominium ownership. And so as a percentage, just to put it in context, we're paying about 11% of the overall dues, 11 and change, I think. Mr. Slaughter, correct me, but I think 11% and change of the total dues that we're paying. I have verified independently, with city staff, that we are being charged the correct amount. So certainly we are not being overcharged by the condo association relative to our obligations. But whether we should continue to be involved in this type of arrangement going forward and what the options are, as the mayor said, I would suggest might be a conversation for a different time, perhaps sooner rather than later, but I would suggest that the council approve this item as is, 'cause I do believe for the moment we're stuck with it.
I'm fine with consent.
Okay, consent,
Yeah.
yes.
unanimous. That will move to item 7.2 on the agenda.
So Clearwater, I hope you learned a valuable lesson. So don't forget to hit that like, share, and that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video. Soliaker, deuces.